Good afternoon to Hatter Nation. I'm Chris Rolks, Stetson University's 10th president, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the live edition of the Rolks Report. We're going to talk today about the state of the university, and I have a lot of good news to share on that front. But before I do, I wanted to share with you just a time last night. I just shared this with our DeLand faculty. I happened to be joyfully triple booked last night for a variety of events. The first was our women's basketball coach had just earned her 400th career victory. We honored her before our game against Jacksonville, which we won. I then sprinted up to the Hall of Fame room at the Edmonds Center to give virtual welcome in our business ethics competition led by Jim Beasley and John Tishner, where 16 other universities were competing in business ethics, one of the signature programs of our School of Business. And then I was also then sprinted on to get onto a virtual lecture for our J.A. Stewart lecture series. So it was a full night, but it wasn't over then. I then decided on my way home to stop over at the Hollis Center, where my nephew, who was a Stetson junior, was competing in intramural basketball. So half the gym was intramural basketball, the other half was intramural soccer. And why I share that with you is because I'm so encouraged and so energized to see our campus back active again. There were a wide range of spectators for that particular set of intramural competitions. And it just, again, was energizing and heartwarming to see our students back doing the things that they love that we haven't been able to do as fully as we would have liked during this COVID-19 pandemic. So I wanted to share that little anecdote with you. I just have three more things I wanted to say as a point of introduction before we get to our exceptional panel. We have just completed a set of board meetings, not just for the DeLand campus, but also the Board of Overseers at the law school. And I'll start there. Very energizing set of conversations over at the law school, which is having record number enrollment stats. They are also competing nationally yet again at a very, very high level. Our faculty are being very, very productive. And a good part of that discussion was also focused on ambitions for our advocacy center. Hatter Nation will recall that one of the really important parts of the School of Law, College of Law's legacy is in fact our incredible performance in trial advocacy, always ranked number 1 or 2 in the nation with regard to trial advocacy. So the fundraising is nearly halfway complete for the Advocacy Center improvements at the College of Law, and that was all very, very exciting. And of course, just this past week, we've come off some really exceptional board meetings, really laser focused on our students and on our faculty. Toward that end, we had great plenary sessions focused on strategic priorities for our School of Music, for our School of Business Administration, for our DuPont Ball Library, and of course, for our College of Arts and Sciences. And I don't mind sharing with you that several veteran trustees who have been with Stetson a long, long time took it upon themselves to give me a phone call to let me know that it was the most energizing set of board meetings that they had experienced during their time at Stetson, which I think is just terrific. I also want to end my opening remarks with, we have strategic planning ahead of us. The board meetings that I just mentioned were a very important start of that process, along with a listening tour that has already taken place over the last 6 or 8 months. I'll end with some really good news, which is that we now, to date, on February, what's today, the 17th or 18th of February, have far exceeded our goals with regard to annual fundraising. The previous record set in a fiscal year for fundraising at Stetson was about $28 million back in 2018. And it's with great excitement that I share with you today, with still several months left in the fiscal year, that we have exceeded $42 million in fundraising for fiscal year 21-22. And we were way ahead of the pace with regard to our Stetson Fund. I end my remarks with that because during these challenging times, I think it's very reaffirming to know that folks that have capacity, as well as those that don't, are giving to Stetson University to support us and to think about our future together. And I just find that incredibly energizing and reaffirming. So I share that with you. I now turn to my colleagues. for their presentations to give us some feedback on how things are going with the state of the university. I turn first to my colleague, Executive Vice President, Bob Huth. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Chris. Wanted to provide a university perspective for all campuses, and I'll start with the current year's current projection. We do multiple projections a year, coincident with the board meetings, and this is the one from the most recent board meeting. So as President Rolks has identified, the College of Law has exceeded its enrollment targets and has, as a result, has a remaining contingency of $1.7 million, which is approximately 6% of the College of Law budget. And that bodes well for a positive year end with 5.5 months remaining. At DeLand, enrollment is down, creating a 5% overall reduction in revenue. We had fortunately an original contingency of 5.1%, so that was slightly higher. And that's been very helpful in covering this, as well as allowing for restoration of the retirement benefit and also a salary increase. The remaining projected contingency at this time is $2.5 million, which is 2.1% of the budget. And that's primarily the result of less than anticipated expenditures due to more open positions than anticipated. I'm sure you'd like to know about planning for next year in an inflationary environment. At this last board meeting, the College of Law tuition increase was just approved at 3.9%. And last October, the undergraduate tuition increase of 2.9% was approved. And that was before the recent increase in inflation. As all campuses are enrollment driven, and given recent enrollment outcomes, looking ahead to next year, a significant contingency will still be needed in DeLand, and a lesser contingency required for the College of Law. Might be interested in the priorities as we're doing our budgeting. Certainly salary increases are a priority, and making progress towards the $15 per hour for those under that threshold. Replacing student service staffing. There's been a good number of positions that have been vacant there. Increasing faculty and staff development budgets, and restoring the renewal and replacement reserve. I had a recent question about rates of increases in healthcare and salaries. Healthcare increases being higher than we'd all like, and salaries being lower than we'd all like. Just want to say we collectively do the best we can with resources available. In regard to healthcare, we have a benefits advisory committee, which is a group of faculty, staff, and retirees that annually study the university's healthcare plan to recommend plan design and any planned cost increases to the senior administration. Their recommendation identifies the best way forward, given rising healthcare costs and plan design changes such as deductibles and co-payments. In regard to salary increases, please remember that university compensation is the largest expenditure at 60% of the budget, which is 79% enrollment driven. So although enrollment has been significantly down for the undergraduate student population, the university has been able to provide a salary increase as well as total restoration of retirement benefits. And this has been helped by university donors, as President Rolks had mentioned, and the greater use of the university's endowment resources than normal. I just wanted to remind us that the university prioritized Stetson faculty and staff community by not instituting any mandatory layoffs, and prioritize students by providing face-to-face instruction throughout COVID. And again, please remember that collectively we do the best we can with the resources available. Thank you, and I'd like to turn it over to Provost Painter.
Thank you, Bob, and welcome everybody who's part of Hatter Nation, the Stetson community, student, staff, faculty, prospective students, families, alumni. We know that this is a quite challenging time in the world, and that you have dedicated a bit of your afternoon at the end of what I'm sure was a busy week to learning more about the activities at your university is a strong mark of the work that's going on here, and hopefully the value that you see in your association with Stetson. I want to build at the beginning, just a little bit off of what President Rolks said at the beginning. Last night, after I was walking out of the women's basketball game, after going to the Stewart lecture that brought Marcia Chatelain to Stetson, a 2021 Nobel Prize winner in history, I was reflecting on what it is like now to start re-engaging in an active community life. You know, we are so fortunate to be where we are, to have all of these things around us, to have theater productions for Twilight Los Angeles 1992 to go to have University Symphonic Band concerts to go to, and jazz band concerts, to be able to go to the Hand Art Center and see art exhibits of our own faculty. Those opportunities should be fully taken advantage of, and we're privileged to be part of a higher education institution that allows us access to those things. So I hope as we come out of the rigors of the pandemic we've been in most recently, that you find time to engage in those things that make Stetson a really vibrant place for learning. There are a number of things that I'm excited about that we are doing to make this an academically vigorous and vibrant place. One of those things most recently has been our successes in gifts and grants. It's just right now, after a lot of planning, that I think that the outcome of the Lavallee bequest to Stetson, a substantial amount, more than $15 million to Stetson, is redounding itself in ways that are strongly going to benefit our students and our faculty, our College of Arts and Sciences, and our School of Music. We're continuing to see incredible success in grant funding, most recently with Lynn Key in a National Science Foundation grant that is going to look at CRISPR technology. CRISPR technology is super new, right? Just 2020, not even in very many textbooks just yet. And so we're exposing our students to really contemporary learning. Those kinds of activities make Stetson what it is and give our students the best outcome that's possible. So that, along with Brown Hall, which I know that Benita Dukes is going to talk more about in just a little while, is really encouraging for what Stetson's future has in mind. And lastly, I'll say, as we look toward summer of 2022 and fall of 2022, we continue to be encouraged by the way that we are addressing the pandemic that we're in. And our planning for fall 22 in specific is looking more and more toward the type of face-to-face education that Stetson is known for and that we pride ourselves on between our students and our faculty. That doesn't mean that we won't have pockets that continue to take advantage of the gains that we have through online learning, but I think increasingly we're focused on those gains where it really does demonstrate where online learning, synchronous and asynchronous, benefit the university and benefit the learning experience for our students. We remain committed to an in-person teaching education for our students, and we will realize that once again in fall of 2022. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our Vice President of Enrollment, Ray Nault.
Very good. Can you hear me now? I hope everyone can hear me. Thanks very much, Noel. I'm going to just highlight where we are as we look at fall 22. We have a lot to review, a lot of highlights, a lot of good things to discuss, and a lot of things to prepare about. So let's get into a little brief presentation that I've put out here for next year. So a lot of good things with the fall 22 cohort. We have a highly admissible pool. Students are beginning to come to campus again and visiting at much higher rates. We are seeing significant out-of-state and international applications. Just a note, international applications are 50% over last year, and obviously the highest we've ever seen international applications, which is a good thing. We are seeing, though, there are some concerns, and we want to make sure that many of our prospective students and even current students continue to complete their financial aid applications. I do realize that some students think that they're not going to qualify, and it's important to know that everyone will qualify for financial aid. What the FAFSA will tell us is what type of financial aid you will qualify for. So filing for financial aid applications is down, and it lags significantly in the state of Florida. We are also seeing a notable within about 120 miles of campus that student applications are down as well. You will see a little bit later in this presentation that we are actually having a local student reception. We're going to invite all our students here within the 120 miles to come to campus, see what is to experience the Stetson opportunity. And we welcome everybody to take advantage of that. As a little note, and I wanted to highlight what we're seeing here, demographically here in the state of Florida, you'll notice on the right-hand side of that chart, Florida is way down compared to the national average. We are going to have a number of webinars to help families who are concerned about how to complete the FAFSA. What does it mean to complete the FAFSA? What are the steps that need to be taken in order to qualify for as much financial aid as possible? We know that a lot of students this year are waiting and probably waiting to the deadline to submit their applications. We're encouraging everyone not to wait, to get it done early, and to maximize the most amount of financial aid that a student can receive. So I think this is a concern that we want to make sure that our prospective and current students continue to apply for financial aid. Do not think that you're not going to receive anything. Again, you could make a significant amount of money. You will still qualify for some sort of financial aid. And that's the important part about federal financial aid and completing the application. If you need help, know that our office and the Office of Student Financial Planning is able to assist. We do virtual, we do in person. We even have a few other opportunities, which I will cover later in this brief presentation. Notably, we have a number of important dates coming up. As I was just mentioning, on February 23rd, we're going to have our local senior reception here at the Rinker Welcome Center on campus. We are welcoming anybody who's local, who has not come to campus yet, to see what it means to become a Hatter. On March 19th, it's going to be our premier Scholars Day event, and we welcome everybody who has been invited already to attend that event. After that is our Select Stetson, and those who are in our community formerly know this as Hatter Saturday. This has been redubbed and repurposed to Select Stetson because we want you to realize that Stetson experience is going to be the best place to achieve your outcomes. So we want you to select Stetson. We want this to be your home. As you dive into the next important deadline is May 1st, the national confirmation deadline along the way. So know that we have a number of events on here. I've highlighted just a few of them. We will have a number of accepted student receptions throughout the state and nationally. So pay attention to your admissions counselors and take a look at your emails, because we are sending out invitations and notifications on when those events are going to happen. If you don't know, feel free to reach out to your admissions recruiter. You can find them on your Hatter portal, and you can actually talk to them in person or by email. After that, I want to make sure that our students don't forget. Our current students, we need to make sure you complete your financial aid applications on time. If you were impacted by COVID and you're not maintaining satisfactory progress, we encourage you to talk to the financial aid team and discuss options available to you. Meet with your academic advisors. If you need to consider summer, there is financial aid available to students during the summer period. So get your application submitted by the 15th. That'll give us plenty of time to work with you if you have concerns about changes in your family circumstances, if you want to figure out ways to make sure you can minimize unintended consequences that come up. The team is there to assist you and support you throughout the way. A couple important pieces you'll notice on the left-hand side is we realize that sometimes you'll be up late at night, and we want to give you every opportunity to get the answers that you need. So I want to promote, the first one is Financial Aid TV. This is a great resource to help understand, why is the FAFSA so important? What does it mean to be full-time or part-time? What is satisfactory academic progress? This will give you little short 30 to 40-second clips and help you understand some important information about financial literacy. In addition to that, you'll notice on the front page or any of the admissions and financial aid pages right now, you'll see this little icon. That is Hattie. Hattie is our real-time chatbot. You can ask any kind of questions about, when is my bill going to be due? How do I sign up for a payment plan? You can talk about, what does it mean to submit a scholarship application? This will answer the questions. And if we don't have an answer ready for you, you can connect with the real person. There are 4 offices that are actually on this real-time chatbot that is admissions, financial aid, student accounts, residential life and learning, and academic advising. We are waiting to get 2 of our newest offices on board, which is student accounts and academic advising, but the 3 other offices are on and ready to support where we can. So utilize it. I recommend that. It's a great resource for you to take advantage of. Additionally, I want to promote this as well. We have Scholar Manager. This is our donor-funded scholarship portal, which allows you to create a portal and actually potentially match up with a donor-funded scholarship. We do want to make sure that we give you and our donors the best kind of opportunities along the way. So you can go out here, you can do a scholarship search, look for something that's an area of interest. You're a first-gen student, whether or not you have a number of other opportunities, you can actually create a profile that allows the financial aid team to see if you qualify for a donor-funded scholarship. So it's a great resource, and I encourage you to take advantage of it. And lastly, I wanted to promote this as well. We have a number of students who come to the financial aid office are unsure of how to make a meeting with the financial aid team. You can go right into your mystetson.edu portal, click on resources, and under that, you'll see Stetson SSC. Once you do that, you'll see on the right-hand side, schedule an appointment. You can schedule an appointment with any one of the financial aid staff members. You can actually discuss certain areas. You can, if you want to meet with Joanne, Belem, Veronica, or so forth, you can actually say, hey, they're not available today. This is the time that I want to meet with them on. So a great opportunity for you to connect with the staff members you've built relationships with, find opportunities to connect with those staff members over time. And again, there's virtual and in-person opportunities. So know that these are at your fingertips and available for anybody to use. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you, Ray, very much. Appreciate it very much. And we'll turn just in a second to Benita Dukes, but I wanted to remind participants of this Rolks Report Live that you can submit questions that we will tackle at the end of the formal presentations. Thank you. Benita Dukes.
Thanks, President Rolke. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to provide an update on the new CC and Hyatt Brown Hall for Health and Innovation Project. It's hard to believe that it's been nearly 9 months since groundbreaking on this project, this very transformative project. Since that time, many of us are getting a front seat view of this wonderful new addition to our glorious campus. After a significant portion of the site work was completed, the building pad was poured, which set the stage to begin going vertical. The last few months have been filled with exterior walls being erected, the floor slabs being poured, roof decking work, plumbing, and electrical work. And on January 7th, construction of the hall reached another landmark. Brown Hall had its topping out. This is when the final beam is placed on the building for construction. Since that time, much of the exterior brickwork has been completed and detailed as you see in the slide here. The hoods for the new teaching kitchen have been installed, and as you see here, the structural frame for the monumental stair has been put in place. The interior wall studs are being installed. The roof overhang framing for the south, east, and west sides of the building have all been erected. So this view shows a 2-story volume of atrium space that will include high clear story windows that'll infuse natural light into the space, into the concourse of all the collaboration spaces. In addition, you see the start of the structure around some of the field studies labs that'll be located in the new building. These views show the future student lounge and study alcove, as well as future classrooms located off of the connector. Speaking of the connector, work will start on the Sage to Brown Hall 2-level glass enclosed connector beginning in early April. This work will involve demolishing Sage Hall's south stair to make room for a new wider stair. The work will continue through the whole summer of 2022. This view is of the 2nd floor student collaboration space and some small group meeting spaces that will be glass enclosed. Now, here are a few key dates to keep in mind. April 4th through August 1st of 2022, Sage Hall's south stair will be demolished and made room for the new stair construction. During this time, the maximum occupancy will be reduced to meet egress requirements. And on November 1st of 2022, we expect a full certificate of occupancy to be issued. And that will allow us, beginning in November and December of 2022, to start bringing in new furniture and equipment into the new building. And then in December and through January 6th of 2023, the building occupants will be moved into the new building, new CC and Hyatt Brown Hall for Health and Innovation. And we're very excited for that. Thank you for allowing me to bring this construction update on the new CC and Hyatt Brown Hall for Health and Innovation. Now I'll turn it over to Lynn.
Thanks, Benita. I get more excited every time I see those images. Well, I'm going to talk briefly about some Safer Stetson updates. And first, to do that, I want to say congratulations and thank you to all of you for doing such an amazing job in our return to campus and management of Omicron. We were able to stabilize very efficiently and quicker even than our other Florida private institution partners upon our return to campus in the spring, and we're really proud about that. After we saw some initial stabilization, our numbers continue to decline up until even right now. We currently have 10 cases, positive cases, one of those at the College of Law and 9 in DeLand. And at our on-campus testing event this week, we had no positive cases come back. So we're feeling really good about where we are right now. Other things we saw with Omicron that were different, we saw a shorter illness time, faster recovery, and mild to severe symptoms, mostly affecting the unvaccinated community. Things looked really different for us with Omicron this spring than we've seen with some of the other surges that have happened on campus. We do keep an eye on what's going on with our counties. And so, as has been consistent throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we tend to start to see improvement on campus here at Stetson before we start to see that improvement in our local area. And so we want to make sure you know that we do keep an eye on that. We do take that into account when we make changes to policy and we move around in tiers. And so luckily the counties are improving, but it has been much slower than we've seen here on campus. And that's in both positive cases as well as hospitalizations, continuing to decline, looking really good, but it's been a little slower. So we get a lot of questions about how we make decisions about changing in tiers or changing with masking. And so I wanted to give you that little overview of some of the things that we're looking at right now when we're making the changes that we're making. And something that I've said on these webinars before is that if you think we're moving too fast or moving too slow, know that there are just as many people in the Stetson community who think the opposite and a bunch of people in the middle. And so when we just make decisions, we try to make it based in science, data, numbers, what's going on in the county, our community health partners, through Volusia County Department of Health, through Advent Health, and through our national partnerships with the American College Health Association. Those are the things we take into account, how we're able to manage the load, things like that when we make decisions. So right now we are fully in tier 4 and masks are only required in the classroom. We still recommend masks for those of you who are not vaccinated, as is consistent with CDC recommendations. So do know that our other private school Florida partnerships, they're making similar decisions right now about moving to masks being required in the classroom, but not in other places. So we're right in line with our schools that look like us in the state. A couple of other reminders. If you're not boosted, we highly recommend that you get boosted. The CDC, American College Health Association, recommends boosting for anyone who is able. The CDC is making some changes in their language. You might have seen it. They're talking about those who are up to date with vaccines, having a different directive and set of responsibilities and actions that happen versus saying vaccinated and unvaccinated. And so that means that if you're vaccinated, but you're not up to date on your booster, right, you still have to, for example, quarantine if you have a direct exposure. So it's really important to get boosted and really important to tell us that you have gotten boosted and report it in advance. Testing. We have at-home test kits that we are now offering to all of our students on both campuses. So students, we recommend you pick one up in advance. Lots of communication about where you can get them on campus, and that way when you need it, you don't have to go back out and get it, you just have it. We also have our weekly open testing in DeLand, bi-weekly at the College of Law. Please continue to use it. It's good for you as an individual, but it also helps us understand what's going on out there with the health of our community. And so it helps us when you get tested. Please continue to report your symptoms. That's another way that we can stay on top of things and try to make quick adjustments so that we don't have to make jerky ones, right? We can make small adjustments. So please report your symptoms. And then know that Safer Campus, our task force, continues to meet weekly. We have met weekly since March of 2020. We have never stopped doing this work. We will continue to do it until it's not needed anymore. And we look at all these things that are going on, all the data, all the information, to try to make decisions about how to respond to this pandemic. And we'll continue to do that for you. So if you don't hear as much from us because things are going well, please know we're still doing the work. Thanks again for all you do to help. And now I would love if all my partners here on the webinar would come back on screen.
Thank you very much, Lynn. And thank you, panelists, for, I think, very informative presentations. Appreciate it very much. Some questions are starting to populate the chat. And I think one is a wonderful segue to your presentation, Lynn, which was thinking about Safer Stetson Task Force understanding of natural antibodies that might be received by members who have had COVID.
Yes, great question. So Stetson follows the guidelines of the Department of Health, and the Department of Health does not factor in natural antibodies received from people who have had COVID in regards to their isolation and quarantine protocols. We do take into account the percentage of our population that have potential, we have to say potential antibodies because we're not going around testing everybody, when we make decisions about changes that we make in leniency and policy. So absolutely, we take it into account for our decision making, but we can't take it into account for isolation and quarantine because we follow the Department of Health's guidance.
Great, thank you. We're having some other questions related to the university's finances, which I'd like to speak to a little bit. And I think it's reflective of some of the comments that our Executive Vice President, Bob Huth, made. And I'd ask Bob to also follow up my remarks if he's able. We want to really acknowledge that this has been a challenging time, not only from a cost and inflationary perspective, that your pay is maybe not meeting all of your needs for monthly bills and the like. It's certainly that challenge goes beyond Stetson, but it certainly is impacting folks at Stetson. And I didn't mention this in my opening remarks with regard to the board, but we have asked the board to also give consideration in their fiduciary role to how we might do better, particularly for those that are at the lower end of our pay scale, to improve those conditions. We currently have 70 plus vacancies at Stetson on the DeLand campus, which is a function, of course, of that challenging labor environment in which we live. And we really do need, we're particularly having trouble at some of those that are at the lower end of the pay scale and in mid-level management. So as we think about making the best use of the resources that we have available to us, we certainly, I think it's safe to say, want to prioritize those for whom it's difficult to make, for them to make ends meet, right? So I say that broadly. Bob, I don't know if you'd like to add any additional commentary on that, because I do know it's a challenging environment, both from a labor market perspective, as well as because it's an inflationary environment.
what I can say is that as we go through the budget process for next year, that can be a consideration through that process for prioritization.
That's great. Thank you, Bob. There's a question here about enrollment. I think there's a desire to understand better why there's a reduction in enrollment. And Ray, I think in your slide, you provided some of the reasons for that, including some of the challenges associated with our own backyard within a 120-mile radius. I'll just say broadly, and then I'll turn to you, Ray. This is an exceptionally difficult enrollment environment across the board in the nation and also among our peers. So it's not at all an excuse, but this is not a phenomenon that is unique to Stetson. Ray?
You hit it on, nail on the head. We are not immune to this enrollment challenge. It is not necessarily due to males. Right now, we still are at a 60-40 split, 60% female, 40% female. And now it's just a matter of indicating what the Stetson's value is, Stetson value proposition, and making sure students understand that's what we can do for them. We've known COVID has impacted our ability to recruit, our ability to travel and get that message out. So we are now out in full force. Our next events will be fully attended. And we're starting to see, as you notice in the slides, our campus visitations are beginning to go up. So again, we're not immune to that, and we're not alone. The ones who have actually done extremely well are the highly selective institutions. And so we are beginning to get on the up and really make it work. But it's not solely just to what you're seeing in a national trend, decline in male attainment. Right now, it is localized to Florida, and that's where our reduction is.
Ray, thank you very much for that information. And let me also share a personal anecdote, which I think illustrates why we are cautiously optimistic that we're going to see increased numbers moving forward, not only because of the strategies that Ray just described earlier, but we just had experience Stetson, was it about a week ago, Ray? I believe it was a week ago. It was outdoors. It was a beautiful day on this beautiful campus with the CC and Hyatt Brown Hall for Health and Innovation in the distance for this aggregated crowd of over 300 people. That is a good thing. And let's just be straight up that, you know, one of the selling points for Stetson University is in fact our campus and is in fact our climate. And we were able to showcase that beautifully, I thought, something we haven't been able to do so much in recent months. The other piece I wanted to be transparent about with regard to the enrollment picture is in fact our geography. I just mentioned some of the positive parts of our geography, but let's also be clear and transparent with one another that we have some lower cost alternatives that are in and around us in Central Florida that are also something that are very, very important for us to do, is to make it very, very clear what our value proposition is, right? Ray and his team are doing some extraordinary work to educating folks about financial aid. People just assume when they look at the sticker price that they're not going to be able to attend Stetson. There's nothing further from the truth, given the generous financial aid that we afford, as well as the other sources of tuition support that we've received from the federal and the state government, including EASE and Bright Futures and those kinds of things. So we need to continue to make Stetson on the map, in the minds of families, not only here in the state of Florida, but a geographic footprint that's a bit larger. Ray also spoke to that in terms of internationally and other markets. But please rest assured, all 200 participants, all hands on deck when it comes to the enrollment piece. And that includes everyone, right? Everyone at Stetson University is an enrollment officer, in my view. That every interaction that a visiting family has on the campus is part of their calculus that they engage in when they make their college choices. So thank you for the questions. They're vitally important questions because, as we all are well aware, Stetson University is a tuition and room and board driven institution, and we need that to be robust. So thank you for those questions. Let me check my chat and see what some other questions we have here. Question, I think, Lynn, I can direct this to you, is I think Stetson has really performed quite admirably when it comes to what we call gateway, right? So we have really good protocols in place to catch COVID infection upon arrival, isolate properly, make sure that we're checking in, et cetera. There's a question here about spring break and spring recess and whether or not that is also a point of additional attention for safer Stetson and our community?
Yes, so absolutely. Spring break is a very important point in the semester that we need to have a tight eye on. And so we really hope that people do get tested the week after, and actually 2 weeks after as well. That's everyone's individual responsibility to go and get tested. It takes less than 5 minutes to spit in the little cup. We're so lucky we have saliva-based testing now. PCR results within 24 to 48 hours. They're really fast. We're so grateful for that partnership. So we will be taking a much tighter eye and look at things after spring break and making sure that we can remain stable. It's not a time where we would make any big changes. For example, we need to make sure that we've stabilized upon spring break return. So the question also included about moving up in tier after spring break. And I did want to highlight that tier 4 is currently our highest tier. So we did start conversations back in December. Benita is a great member of our task force who's helped in these dialogues about what we called beyond tier 4. Like, let's talk about it. Those conversations were going really well, and then Omicron happened. So now that we have stabilized, it'll be the next thing we jump back into. As I mentioned, we just really never stop doing this work to talk about what it means to move beyond tier 4. So we will keep a close eye on things after spring break. There's other things that we look at that maybe people don't even think about. Daytona 500 is this weekend. We know we have students that actually go and work the event. So we try to keep an eye on all those things that could have big impact.
Thank you very much, Lynn. There's also another thread in the question chat box, thinking about both diversification of potential revenue sources when there's enrollment declines, et cetera. I'd like to turn, if I could, to Noel Painter, because we've also, the lower than expected FTIC for the undergraduate level has been nicely mitigated by robust enrollments, both at the School of Law, College of Law, and also in our graduate program. So Noel, may I turn to you to give us a little bit of an insight on that?
Absolutely. And the way in which we engage in academics is certainly part of diversifying revenue streams beyond undergraduate net tuition revenue. The way in which our summer enrollment has grown year over year for a number of summers and continued to have strength during COVID, the way in which we've advanced our grant activity, as I was mentioning a little bit earlier today, and then certainly in our graduate enrollment as well. We've taken advantage of the changes in the grad school education market, not in small part due to the economy that we're in, but also because of the challenges that we see in the world around COVID. I mean, counselor education is knocking it out of the park in enrollment, and we've increased our goals and our resources for students and faculty in that area. Our College of Law is showing extraordinary demand in a Florida market where we have applications for law schools roughly down 5%. Ours are up about 28%. So we are showing real strength in that regard as well. And our other graduate programs, the MFA, our various education programs, our MBA, and our MAC programs continue to show solid strength in our recruiting. So I feel good about that aspect of diversification of income for Stetson, because it makes us all stronger in the long term.
No, that's very helpful, and it made me think also about the really wonderful investment that's been made in the CC and Hyatt Brown Hall for Health and Innovation, because you mentioned, for example, the demand in counselor education. And of course, as anybody's watching the news or reading about the labor market, there's also tremendous demand and shortages in the area of the health professions. And so there's the timing of the opening of CC and Hyatt Brown Hall for Health and Innovation, I think is quite fortuitous for Stetson University. Ray, there's a couple of admissions related questions that I wanted to pose to you. One was around the area of SAT optional, ACT optional, which is, I think, part of a national trend of schools really moving to more holistic approaches to evaluating candidates. Would you like to speak a little bit to the question in the chat about SAT optional, ACT optional, that kind of stuff?
So I'm pleased to say that Stetson predates the COVID activity of becoming test optional, when the SATs were really hard to complete during the 2-year period. we've been test optional for about 10 years now. And so students know that they can apply to Stetson without having to complete the SAT or ACT components. Yes, they're required for state Bright Futures eligibility, but from an admissions standpoint, we are looking holistically at the applicant. So when we're making sure that we're bringing in the most robust type of students, you know, SATs are only a small part of that consideration. So it's a great question, but doesn't really impact us in the respect that we need it for admission purposes. And I will commend the Faculty Admissions Committee for making that really bold initiative many years ago.
Thank you very much, Ray. And I want to share with the panelists and for the audience something that came in, and we appreciate this more than you know. A huge thank you to all here for the hard work done by everyone here. Keeping Stetson safe and keeping Stetson relevant is so important, and Stetson continues to shine in both areas. Very, very grateful for that sentiment. And let me also say to everyone on the screen and watching, thank you. Lynn spoke about this in her remarks. Our COVID performance, our ability to continue to stay face-to-face as much as reasonably possible to move a Stetson education forward for our students has absolutely been a collective effort. You know, folks have taken on roles and responsibilities they did not anticipate that they would be doing. Lynn herself has become a public health expert during her time as co-chairing the Safer Stetson Task Force. You know, my own person that helps out a bit over at the house, at the president's house, has become a contact tracer and got trained very, very quickly in order to do that. So I really do want to acknowledge not only that wonderful sentiment expressed in the chat, but to extend that acknowledgement to everyone at Stetson University. It makes me really proud to be a part of such a caring and thoughtful community that steps up when the chips are down. And I thank you for that. I'd like to offer my panelists, because I don't see any other questions in the chat at the moment, for any other last words of wisdom or information that you wish you had provided that you were not able to provide in your earlier remarks based on the way the conversation has gone. I see Noel Painter has his hand up. Thank you, Noel.
Absolutely. And I'll just remark about what our future, I think, is looking like in terms of engagement outside of DeLand and maybe even outside of Florida. You know, we have students that are abroad right now. We have international programs that are in the works for this spring break and this summer. Stetson is coming back into a place where it is able to support students and faculty and their scholarly and creative activity endeavors around the United States and even beyond the United States. And so I'm encouraged by that. I know that our faculty will continue to work with our students on finding those opportunities to get out of campus and out of the classroom into internships and study abroad experiences and international learning, all those ways in which we wrap learning around the core of classroom to make for that great outcome for our students. So just one thing for us to think about moving forward.
Thank you, Noel, very much. I'd like to turn to my colleague, Lynn Schoenberg, to talk just a little bit on some remarks she'd like to share about campus vibrancy.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to highlight the amazing vibrancy efforts that are going on campus, faculty, staff, and students working to put those efforts on and really help bring us to a place of engagement that feels like Stetson, and to also encourage folks to do that and to not feel held back by COVID or a perception of policy, to not do events or programs. If you're feeling that way, please talk to our staff and we will help you figure out how to make events happen. That's what we want. We want to say yes to those things. And so we've had some awesome events on campus so far this semester. There was a Hatter production, build your own Valentine bear event with a line of people waiting and excited. APAC's Lunar New Year was amazing. Tonight, there's a step show from BSA and Alan Hall. Uncouth Hour is in person again in Lee's Garage, which is one of our very well attended and really, really just great events to be part of. And there's an event happening in the Cub every single week. Lots of great athletic events going on as well. Chris mentioned some, but opening baseball this weekend, which is really exciting. If you're a student and you don't know how to get into any of those things, or you don't know what's up, please go to our program Engage, our platform online, and find out about those events on campus. And again, don't hold back. Plan them, organize them. We'll help you. We want to see that happening.
Thank you, Lynn, very, very much. And I'm going to close out our session today just a few minutes early. There was another question in the chat about getting more detail about where the $42 million is coming from and what it's dedicated to. We'd be happy to provide that detail for you. Not trying to hide anything, but I'd have to work with Krista Bofill to know exactly how that 42 million has been counted. But it's a good number. And I'll stop with this, which is a little goofy, but the bobbleheads have arrived. And I will say somewhat self-servingly that some of the fundraising numbers have been associated with the sale of the bobblehead because we've gotten a lot of mileage out of that thing. And let me conclude with something that I shared throughout upon my arrival at Stetson. And I really believe I hope, something that will carry us through these challenging times. And it's my standard quotation that I like to deliver whenever opportunity that I have. And it is this: kindness not only matters, it enables us to listen, to engage with others unlike ourselves, and to consider paths that we can forge together to make our community, in fact, the world, a better place. I thank all my participants and panelists. I thank you all for the great questions that you've asked. Please keep the questions coming. We will try to be as transparent as possible in responding to them. We don't always know all the answers, but we will try to find them. Thank you, and go Hatters.